Welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder. As a health, wellness, and sports performance coach, my goal each week is to bring you experts to help you take control of your health and build your self-confidence. Thanks for including me today on your journey to better health. I'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, All In Health and Wellness. If you're looking for a health coach, you're looking for a sports performance coach, you're looking for nutrition guidance, like for instance, a meal-by-meal plan that will help you understand how to eat. It will teach you how to eat, and it will give your body, your cells, the proper nutrition to feel great and be able to perform at your best, not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally. If you're looking for those things, you're looking for the key to improve your sports performance, both from a nutrition standpoint and an exercise physical standpoint and a mental standpoint as you approach your athletic event. All In Health and Wellness is able to help in these areas. Go to allinhealthandwellness.com and you'll find the contact information for how to get in touch with them and get started on the plan that will improve your life. Sui, I want to thank you for being a guest on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Thank you so much, Jerry. It's such a joy to be here. I'm so excited.
I am as well. And for people that don't know who you are, let's just do a little bit of like a brief introduction. And you're in London, correct?
Yes, in the
And so,
UK.
yep. And I'm here in Texas, and I love technology, and we can talk and spread this and meet both of our audiences. And the UK is actually the second largest of my audiences of countries, if you will.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So it's been great. So you're a neurologist and a neuro-ophthalmologist, which I'd never heard of until I started, getting to know about you. And so I was like, so tell us a little bit about like what it is that you studied, what it is that you're passionate about.
Thank you so much. It's so funny because some of my medical friends said that, what's neuro-ophthalmology? What do you do?
Yep.
I said before, if I got into it, it's so basically I'm a medical doctor.
Right.
Um, and my field, my primary field is in neurology. So that's to do with brain conditions. And I also did further training in neuro-ophthalmology, which is the vision side related to brain function. So it could
Okay.
be anything from how the nerve, the optic nerve, which receives the messaging, is almost like the cable, electric cable from
Mhm.
our eyes into our brain, to the visual pathways, to the balancing of the eye movements, to the processing of vision. So it's kind of at all different levels of how we perceive vision
Right.
from a neurological aspect. So so that's my primary area. So I'm primarily a clinician.
Okay.
So that's my day job. I'm a
Mhm.
jobbing clinician. I love
Yeah.
doing that. I see a lot of people, and one of the key things I've been really working on is promoting lifestyle-based measures,
Mhm.
empowering people through lifestyle-based measures and an integrative approach.
Right.
Because you may not know that I'm also a yoga teacher. So
Yeah.
so it all comes together really nicely that about 15 years ago, I started getting into yoga, into more holistic self-care approaches, into, eating better, managing stress levels, and kind of getting into mindfulness. And
Mhm.
together, that's kind of my own personal life journey has come nicely with my clinical work, where I've
Mhm.
been able to bring it into clinical practice in an evidence-based and evidence-informed way, where I've been able to help support behavior change and life transformation through these approaches. So I do, in my day job, give people the options of whether it's lifestyle-based
Right.
integrative approaches or medicines if it's appropriate, or sending them for surgery if it's appropriate. So really, there's like the whole gamut of
Yeah.
options.
So, and this isn't necessarily where I want to go with the conversation, but you mentioned it, and so I want to just touch on it. Is like there is that weird for you to be a doctor who's like got into like, oh wait, the evidence shows that if we start doing some of these other things that are more lifestyle based, we can make changes that are away from typically like being on medicine for the rest of our lives.
Well, actually, that's a great question, Jerry, because that's when I started It is unusual to
Mhm.
go straight to the answer, but there are people like me out there.
Yeah.
So when I started talking about it, when I started wanting to bring it into my clinical practice, I actually wasn't sure whether I could say it because
Right.
I was wondering, what's the evidence basis? How do I? So got really, I got certified. I did a lot of training, so I've got my certification through the International Board of Lifestyle Medicine. So there is
Mhm.
one
Yeah.
International Board of Lifestyle Medicine. There are medical societies where people are really gathering the evidence basis from lifestyle to integrative approaches,
Yeah.
functional medicine type approaches. So that kind of health approaches that's beyond just medicine, like
Right.
tablets or surgery. So there are people like us out there. And
Yeah.
I must say that once I started to bring this into my clinical practice, so I work in the National Health Service, so it's a public funded
Mhm.
organization, and of course, I started wanting to bring in approaches that's a little bit different, innovative approaches, doing care in groups, talking about
Mm.
lifestyle. And once I started talking about this, I started showing how it's been effective. Lives of people change.
Yeah.
My colleagues, my medical colleagues are really on board. I have
Oh,
this little
cool.
joke. So it's really funny. There is this joke where one of the units I work in, I joke with my residents that we are the unit that prescribes vegetables. We
Nice.
prescribe vegetables and we do.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes we have to prescribe a specific medication for a
Right.
neurological condition and they get side effects, and we prescribe vegetables to counter the side effects, and it works. So yeah, these things are really integral to it all now. And I must say that more and more people from my institutions, they're joining the societies, the lifestyle medicine
Mhm.
societies, as I'm going for our medical conferences. So there is definitely uh, a grassroots need for it from
Yeah.
patients, from the people we see in our clients or patients through our healthcare. And also, my colleagues are really coming on board with the fact that,
Mhm.
oh, this is interesting. There is some evidence basis to this. But it
Right.
takes a while to change minds, I must say.
Yeah.
And that is also partly why I have this other hat I have, which is doing research. So I do a lot of neuroscience research, lifestyle interventions research. For example, recently I was the first to show that we can use mindfulness to change the brain to
Yeah.
improve people's vision for a neurological condition called visual snow syndrome, where people get really disturbed vision,
Mhm.
disrupted vision, and we could use mindfulness to create change in the pathways. And I presented it at a medical meeting. And it's one of those meetings where I thought, well, this is like really high level.
Yeah.
It was the North American Neuro-Ophthalmology Society meeting. I was a bit worried, I must say, Jerry. I thought, okay, I just have to be prepared to be heckled.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
I'm going to be heckled. I'm going to talk about mindfulness. But wow, my colleagues were so supportive. They were so
Oh,
excited
cool.
about the evidence for it. And of course, now we are doing what we call a randomized control trial. So in
Yeah.
a medical setting, when we do randomized control trial, that's the gold standard to compare head to head of treatment with this mindfulness or those control, meaning without the treatment. So yeah, so yes, it's a long answer to your question of yes, it's unusual, but I'm excited to say that there are more and more people on board with this. And I think this is important because really, at the end of the day, it's the people we look after in our clinic. And I think I'm there to be of service to the people I look after. And if I live my life in a way that includes lifestyle basis, why am I not talking about this if it's truly going to help somebody? So it has to
Right.
be kind of authentic and also, of course, evidence-based. So
Sure.
there is all this research or guided by research, so evidence
Right.
informed.
Right. Well, and that is a big piece. And I think especially now in the world that we live in post the COVID pandemic, right? Is like
Yeah.
what is science and all the different, like
Yes.
everybody's talking about it. And so everybody wants to know, like, where's the proof that this
Yes.
works, right? And or where's the proof that, like, oh wait, this has been damaging to us all this
Yes.
time, right? And what's neat is that when you look at especially like ancient medical, ancient, traditions, and you can see like that this type of lifestyle change and this type of lifestyle medicine was effective, but nobody just wrote it down,
Yeah,
right? It was just
yeah,
passed down from generation to generation, but nobody was going around going like, oh, why does grandma's recipe,
Yes.
help us? I'm like,
Yes.
it just does. And
Yes.
and now everybody's going, okay, well, let's actually get some clinical backing behind it and get the studies that prove this is why this stuff works.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's also partly a case of not just being attracted by the next shiny thing.
Right. Yep.
It's
Yep.
sometimes we have to think, oh, what has been working for a while?
Yeah.
Maybe what would be interesting or shiny would be understanding how it works
Yep.
rather than looking for something else.
Yep.
But of course there are also we do know there are some things that actually it's maybe not really something that's useful, but it's been
Mhm.
done for a long time. But this kind of open-minded,
Yeah.
curious approach really helps us to look at everything in a broader way rather than, oh, not interested because it's old or not interested because it's whatever. It's more
Yeah.
of like, okay, oh, let's see, does it work? Why does it work? How
Right.
can it be helpful? Or when can it not be helpful? Kind
Mhm.
of just being open and curious. And the key thing is actually just to be humble about it all,
Right.
because what we know today may be different from what we know in 10 years because
Sure.
new information come about and it really
Yeah.
comes with a sense of curiosity, open-mindedness, and
Mhm.
really humility with what we know now may be different.
Right. And that's a huge point to make because nobody has the perfect, you
Yep.
know, way of doing it, the perfect way to find health because it's changing and not just what we're learning about how the body works, because that's changing because there's so much that we still don't know, but what we're introducing to our body that we have to fight off, right? The different toxins that are being created and
Yeah.
chemicals and different things that we're exposed to that we're like all of a sudden, I mean, you don't even have to go back very far to go like, okay, well, there's no EMFs that we have to worry about.
Mm.
And now,
Hmm.
cell phone towers on every corner almost. And so it's like we've got to worry about all this stuff and Wi-Fi in the houses. It's interfering with our brains for sure and our nervous system. I'm sure you've seen some stuff that can testify to that. But yeah, so it's like what we know now is more than likely going to change. But on the flip side of that too, some of the stuff that like what you do to make your cells healthy, what you do to make your body healthy, is probably still going to be really similar from a lifestyle standpoint.
Yeah, and I would also say that a lot of times as we gather new knowledge, it's about how we apply it. And
Mhm.
also, I would say there is also this thing about how do we apply it in a proportionate way?
Mhm.
Because what I worry sometimes is that people get into a fear situation
Yeah.
where there is a lot of fear about something because of new information about, oh, this can be cancer causing, or there's a risk. But then actually,
Mhm.
what is the bigger picture? Is it dose dependent? How much dose? What's the proportion of it? So there
Right.
is this bigger approach of, okay, how do we put it into context?
Mhm.
And how do we make it something that's useful and empowering for people?
Right. Right. And one of the things that to go back to a little bit about how you were talking about, just one of the things that I was thinking about was so my grandfather who passed away in 2009. um, I remember going to his house one time and he was like, you know what? And I'm an athlete, and I was telling him about, I've been cramping up, and he's like, oh, just get some soap,
Yeah.
just regular soap. He goes, that's what my doctors told me. And I was like, your doctor. And my grandfather lived in Ozark, Arkansas, which is in the mountains of Arkansas, like this really small town. And and so people called him, the hillbillies. And so I was like, okay, your doctor who's like in his 80s is giving you this, like, you know, just put soap on it to get the cramps to go away. And I was like, and I was like, but I'll try it, right? I'll try it, and it worked. And I was like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
this is crazy. And he explained it to me, and he said the doctor said it's just a chemical reaction. Your body's cramping because of lactic acid buildup. Soap's a base. It neutralizes itself through the skin as it soaks in overnight. And I was like, okay, so that makes sense, like from a basic chemistry standpoint. Maybe it's a placebo effect because he told me it was going to work and it worked. And like, but I've mentioned that to I don't know how dozens and dozens of athletes, and like they all go, "You're crazy. There's no way," and it works. And then a friend of mine, who's also a coach, this is probably 3 years ago. He sent me a headline from an article from the John Hopkins Journal, and it said doctors have determined that putting soap on muscle cramps helps relieve the cramping, but they don't know why. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Amazing, amazing. I love how
I
you
was
were so
like,
open-minded about it. It's amazing.
they don't know why because they're looking so deep when it's
Yes.
like sometimes it's so basic of an answer
Yeah.
that we look past, but not forgetting that, okay, if it works, it works. So do it.
Jerry, do you think it's to do with the massage effect as well?
Probably,
Mm.
probably. But after my grandfather, this is the most funny part about it is he passed away. We went up and we were cleaning up his house, a month or so after and moving stuff out. And I was in charge of getting like, some of the furniture and stuff. And so I was taking the bed sheets off the bed and he had little bars of soap just lined where his legs
Oh,
were. So that
oh,
like I was like, oh my gosh, he was sleeping on soap to help,
oh.
remove his muscle cramps and everything. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's, like, but things like that are passed down,
Mm.
in their, but I mean, it was 3 years ago that it was researched, but this doctor who in his 80s, I'm sure he was telling people from probably when he was 20, 25, 30 years old to do this. And so it's been around for years and years and years, just now coming out, you know.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
amazing. I must say, there's so much wisdom. I mean, it sounds like you really loved your grandfather. That's
yeah,
such a beautiful story. Thank you for
yeah,
sharing that. So, such a lovely, touching story.
yeah.
And it really highlights that, the value of a generational wisdom. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's about, that whole lovely, beautiful relationship as you have just described with grandfather, grandson, granddaughter, grandmother,
Hmm.
and kind of just knowing like, they probably talk something about how they prepare certain broths when
Right.
somebody's feeling ill, or so that those kind of really traditional remedies and how
Hmm.
people feel so much better, and really having that, and of course that comes with so much love as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
just
Yep.
beautiful, isn't it? And the kind of things that we can gain from that sort of generational relationship and
Hmm.
sharing, so
Yep.
beautiful.
Yep. And so to talk about like some of the stuff that you have seen in or when you started making that shift from more of a traditional medicine into bringing in the lifestyle as well into your practice. Um, you talk about balancing the autonomic nervous system and using those practices and lifestyle things to do that. What, first off, for people that may not know, what is the autonomic nervous system? And then like, how does it, how does it get out of balance?
Yes. So the autonomic nervous system is the part of our nervous system that helps us function in automatic way, so to speak. So it's like the parts of the nervous system that controls blood pressure,
Mhm.
controls sweating, controls pupil dilation, controls, heart rate, and so forth.
Right.
So the autonomic nervous system, we can divide it into two parts. One part is what we call the sympathetic,
Mhm.
and the other the parasympathetic. The sympathetic is in its extreme form. You can think of it like fight or flight. You have to
Mhm.
get away from the tiger.
Right.
There's these are quite ancient forms of kind of things for our body, and it's really crucial. So it's
Mhm.
like at its extreme form, get out of danger, fight or flight. But of course, we need it.
Yeah.
We need it when we wake up in the morning. We need our cortisol to kick in. We
Right.
need to be able to like get up, get going. We need to be ready for a presentation, and things such and such, so and so forth. And also the other part, the parasympathetic, it's like the rest and relax, the
Mhm.
rest and digest. We need that to come in for us to be able to unwind, to be able to digest our meals, to be able to sleep well. So it's really a combination of both. It's not like one is bad or one is good.
Right.
It's really the balance of both. So in the neurological settings, particularly when people, for example, I see this a lot in people who have migraines, for example, or certain conditions that may have triggered from stress to just
Mhm.
get things dysregulated, affecting their sleep and so forth. I find that there's people are oftentimes stuck in more of the fight or flight, and
Right.
that's kind of the modern society oftentimes where we are chronically stressed, notification, phone pinging
Hmm.
here and there, emails
Hmm.
in and out. some people constant interruption, deadlines, and then suddenly going another 5 emails. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
that sort of constant. We
Yeah.
can feel it in our body, and and of course and being able to then unwind to switch into relaxation mode when it's time,
Right.
and being able to manage the stress response to be appropriate, proportionate. So I used that word before, is but just at the right level for what we
Hmm.
need to function optimally.
Yeah.
And and this kind of brings in a combination of my neurological training with understanding about the autonomic nervous system. And also it brings in my other side of, from my training as a yoga teacher, as a
Hmm.
breathwork teacher. I am a movement coach. You mentioned about being an athlete. So I'm really into movement and the body, the mind-body connection,
Hmm.
and kind of realizing that how that could create a significant change in the body. So I'm not the first to think about mind-body approaches
Sure.
and mindfulness and breath work. There is amazing people who have done great research published on this. So this is just pulling together the information's out there and how do we apply it. So in terms of applying it for the people I see, it could be a case of, all right, okay, what can you do immediately in a situation of knowing that the heart is racing a bit too quickly,
Hmm.
feeling stressed, feeling sweaty, and there's this awareness of I need to settle, need to ground. So then
Right.
there could be some mindfulness techniques of just being in the present moment, kind of some breath work, exhale focused breath. I like to share a little breath work combination where the ratio of the exhale, breathing out, it's twice the the duration of the inhale with a
Okay.
little pause in between inhale and exhale. So then that kind of helps to really bring in the rest and relax in, just to settle it a little bit. And it kind of gives that moment of grounding as well for people. So, for example, the ratio, just to clarify for your listeners, for example, I get people to first be aware of what's happening with their
Mhm.
body. The sense of tension, where is it felt? In
Right.
the shoulders or in the chest. Or, different people have different sort of observations of where they're feeling the tightness or another sensation linked with that heightened stress.
Yeah.
And then you just settle into the body, observing the body sitting, sensation of the feet, the seat on the chair, and this having this awareness of this the movement of the breath,
Hmm.
and just observe what the breath is doing, and then start to settle it if that's the right moment to do that. So, for
Yeah.
example, observing if somebody's taking about 4 counts, 3 or 4 counts to breathe in, and then holding it for another 3 or 4 counts, and then breathing out for another, aiming for about 5 to 6 counts.
Hmm.
Or 8 counts, depending on how long, and then hold again. So
Yeah.
the hold in between is to prevent
Mm.
well, some people avoid hyperventilation, basically.
Right.
So it's kind of breathing in for 3, hold for 3, breathing out for 6, hold for 3, and then start again. And I
Okay.
recommend doing that like 10 cycles. So
Yeah.
they're not watching the clock, they're just counting internally. And the count for 3 counts could really slow down. It may
Hmm.
take account of breathing in, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then as it settles, become in, 2, 3,
Right.
hold, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, hold, 2, 3, and start again. And
Hmm.
that really kind of allows somebody to ground to their body. And
Yeah.
and that breath really creates a physiological, so it's a real biological, physiological body
Hmm.
change that happens, bringing in the parasympathetic to kick in to help settle the body. So that balances out a little
Right.
bit. So that's the kind of example.
Right. And so that's not something that that's not necessarily something that's like super rigid. Like
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
to do it this many times. It's
No,
it's more of a like do it until like you may feel at one point you may feel fine after
yeah,
6 cycles. Another time you may have to go 10 cycles,
yes,
right?
yes.
Like
Oh, yeah,
it's
yeah.
variable based on really like when you catch yourself in that moment, right?
Yeah, or even sometimes there are different techniques. So it's just one in a set of
Hmm.
within somebody's toolbox or toolkit.
Right.
So for some, they may find that actually they just need to regulate their breath to be
Mm.
equal amount. They breathe in for 3 or 4, they hold for 3 or 4, they breathe out for 3 or 4, they hold for 3 or 4. Ways to just settle themselves. Or actually a mindfulness practice of just, all right, okay, I'm just going to go for a walk now. As I'm walking, I'm noticing the sensation of my body moving,
Mm.
noticing the sights I'm seeing, noticing the air, the temperature on my skin, the sun, the rain, whatever the wind, and just noticing the movement of the body, noticing the sensations and the breath, and just those moments, it kind of
Hmm.
just settles.
Hmm. And that does more correct inside the brain at the neurological standpoint, like going for a walk and having your phone and you're listening to music or you're talking to somebody. I know a lot of people that talk while they walk. Um, and because we're like, oh, we're killing two birds with one stone. We're getting all these things done. But from a neurological standpoint, we're not letting our brain fully relax, are we? Because we're constantly doing that. And so like that we're missing a moment of true like grounding and mindfulness and peace and all
Mm-mm.
that, correct?
The mindfulness piece is a big thing. So, of course, what you're saying is, as you have in modern ways that we think, let's be very productive.
Hmm.
How can we be more productive? How
Yep.
can we be time efficient? And of
Hmm.
course, there is a place for that. And there
Sure.
is also a place for settling and creating a space in a moment.
Hmm.
So yeah, the mindfulness thing is a big piece about how one can actually achieve some grounding and just some spaciousness.
Yeah.
Just to be in the moment
Hmm.
without for the purpose of just being there.
Yeah.
Without it's not about I'm going to be in a moment so I can be calm.
Right.
I'm going to be in a moment so I can, it's more of like I'm just being in a moment to be in the moment. And
Yeah.
it's this quality of just settling in with the body and just observing what's here, and that sense of softness, the kindness, the curiosity, that
Hmm.
friendliness, the non-judgment that comes with being in the moment with this
Yeah.
mindful approach.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's something that in today's world, I think most of most of the countries that are built up, that are, that are got a lot of neighborhoods, there's a lot of urban development. Like we don't see the people at the end of the day sitting on the porch watching the sunset,
Mm.
maybe
Yeah.
talking, maybe not, just sitting in the
Yeah.
rocking chair, watching things and watching nature calm down and go to sleep. And
Yes.
that 30 or 45 minutes was it seems like as you get older, you're like craving that. You're like, I just need
Mm.
I now I know why my grandparents went and did that, right? Like now I know why people just sit on their porch when they're older. It's like
Yeah.
you look at them, you go, "Don't you have something to do? Aren't you bored? Aren't you?" And you're like, "No, that's smart."
Yeah, yeah, there's so much relaxation and joy with that. And of course, we do know that the brain has their positive benefits for the brain with all these mindfulness practices.
Mhm.
There is the emotional aspects of feeling more resilient. There is the settling, the well-being, but there are also brain changes. We know that when people practice mindfulness, do mindfulness practices, it really helps enhance their brain function.
Mhm.
It improves their memory, improves their sleep. There are lots of benefits.
So you're saying that even as we age, the brain can still like increase function based
Yeah,
on how we feed it. It doesn't have to be one of these, oh, we got to a certain point and now we're just going to start losing function and that's just life because we're old.
I like to say, don't place any limits on our
Mhm.
brain or body.
Mhm. That's nice.
Of course, we're not immortal. I
Sure.
understand, but
Sure.
it's also that concept um, of really being open to say, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And of course, we do know, I love all these, in the last decade or so, or of less than a decade, I guess, I'm seeing more and more of these news or things on social media or being publicized about how, oh, somebody, look, they're in their 80s, they're in the gym, they're lifting all these weights. Look at this woman, she was in her 60s, she was pre-diabetic, she's lifting weights.
Yeah.
These things that, and they're actually showing how somebody who in the past, maybe 20 years ago, we go, oh, 80-year-old probably with a walking stick. But nowadays you can go, doesn't have to be that way. It
Right.
depends on how we treat it. And even if somebody had a, suboptimal health, they could have the potential to further improve and
Yeah.
doesn't have to be limited by age. Of course,
Right.
like I say, we said like we're not immortal and we have to be aware, like, for somebody who's older, it may take longer to build muscle. So,
Sure.
there are all these approaches so that we have to put things into perspective. But
Right.
really, the thing I would say is see what happens. Place
Hmm.
no limits.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Well, and so one of the things that I wanted to mention was that I'm working with a client. He's actually a doctor, and he came to me because we both see the same primary care physician, and he was recommended to work with me because he was like, he's he's in his mid 60s, and he's like, I don't want to retire, but my health is drastically decreasing, like every
Mm,
couple of months, just significant changes, in a negative way.
mm,
And we've been working together for about a year. He just told me the other day that, and he's made massive improvements. Like people are asking him like left and right, like, what are you doing? Because you're
yeah.
vibrant, you look better, you feel better, like you're moving
Yeah.
around better. But he had been going to his eye doctor, like every 3 months, because he has glaucoma, he has some other things that he'd been,
Mm,
that had developed. And he had even had the doctor had even put, holes in his eyes to help with the pressure because it was so strong.
mm,
And they tried drops, and the, I don't know the pressure ratings and what it all means, but he said, he was typically living in the 24, 25 range. With the drops, he could get down to about 18. The doctor really wanted him at 14. And he went in, last week for a checkup, and he was telling me about it. And I was like, so what'd they say? And he says, well, he said that since I'm doing such a great job with the drops, that I can just keep going because my pressure's 14. And I was like,
amazing.
oh, hey, that's
Amazing.
great. He said, I haven't used the drops in 3 months.
Amazing.
And I
Wow,
was like,
look at
well,
that.
why haven't you done that? He goes, because I've just felt great because of the changes that you've helped me make in my lifestyle, that my body is starting to improve and things are starting to change. And so like with your background, I just like wanted to mention that because it's like, he's in his mid 60s, and yeah, that lifestyle change just has has reversed a lot of those things that he's been dealing with, and
Yeah.
it's amazing that you don't have to limit yourself. You don't have to say, oh, I've already got this, and so it's over with.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so profound, isn't it? Lifestyle changes from what we eat. We just
Mhm.
know, like from metabolic health point of view, how that can influence so many aspects of our health. And
Mhm.
of course, movement,
Mhm.
all these things. Basically, the lifestyle things, if we could put it into a pill, you'll be the
Yep.
best-selling pill. The only
Right.
thing is it's not a pill, so it
Yeah.
requires effort.
Yep.
Which is where I think this kind of conversations really encourage people to go, all right, okay, it is worth giving a try and then helping people feel supported to
Mhm.
start to make even little changes.
Yeah.
A little change like, doing one push-up,
Yep.
slowly building up, going for a walk, going for a
Yeah.
5-minute walk, and then perhaps building it up to 2 times a week, three
Mhm.
times a week, every day a 5-minute walk, and then
Yeah.
building up to 10 minutes, so that people feel that, oh, they are winning.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Sometimes, people may have this perception. I either go to the gym 3 times a week, do the weights, run 3 times a week,
Mhm.
or it's not worth doing. But actually, everything counts.
Yeah.
Every little thing counts.
Yeah. It does. And you mentioned metabolic health, and like I think a lot of people understand the connection between, like, okay, if I eat junk food, I gain weight, like, processed sugar, I gain weight. They understand that because it's easy to see,
Mm,
right? It's easy to see those changes. You can't put your pants on anymore, or whatever. But a lot of times we don't recognize the damage that's going on at the brain level because of the the metabolic things that we're doing,
mm,
until like we get to that tipping point where it's like, oh my gosh, well, why did I come into this room? Right?
mm,
Like things like
mm,
that start happening, brain fog, or you and I know people that have, because I've done this when I'm just, overstressed or my brain's just not working. I'm like, I drive somewhere and go like, oh wait, this wasn't where I was going.
Mm,
Like I
mm.
naturally just turned right because, 50% of the time I turn right when I leave a neighborhood, but I meant to turn left and I went the wrong way. Um, because we're so busy with so many other things. But what we eat has a very big impact on how our brain health is, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Which is actually why what motivated me to write my book. So I mentioned before we started recording my new book, Sweet Spot for Brain Health, is
Yeah.
really with all that in mind. It's about how having a stable, avoiding the sharp spikes and crashes
Mm.
of blood sugar, finding ways to stabilize it. And it's not actually about abstaining from sugar.
Mhm.
It's not about living a Puritan, uh,
Right.
kind of a perfect life. It's actually about understanding the impact of the blood sugar that really fluctuates, sharp spikes and crashes. What can we do about it? Which could
Yeah.
be something simple like start with salad before you have your other meal.
Mhm.
Or if you have a plate of food, eat the vegetable first, for
Yeah.
example. Or it could be something like go for a little stroll after a meal that will stabilize the blood sugar.
Mm.
Or, it could be about building up the endurance for zone two or the moderate intensity,
Mhm.
build up walking. It could be about, oh, start to build some muscle. We talked about the
Right.
push-up example. It could be about sleep. It could be about actually what time are we waking up and what time are we sleeping? How regular is our sleep? What's the quality
Right.
of sleep and the
Right.
tips? So it's about all that in this book about the practical things. Well, firstly about the impact
Yeah.
of blood sugar dysregulation and about what we can do in very simple ways, very
Mhm.
achievable and very practical. So just to go more about the brain thing. So there is this situation where when people's blood sugar is really dysregulated.
Mhm.
Or it may be that they are in chronic stress levels, that their blood sugar is always running a little bit high. That could cause inflammation, that could cause cognitive issues in the longer term, putting them at risk of neurodegenerative conditions. And
Mhm.
there are, like, for example, Alzheimer's disease, for there are different paths to it,
Mhm.
but one of the paths could be this metabolic dysregulation. So it's something like a type 3 diabetes. You may
Right.
your listeners will be familiar with type 2 as the most common, related to insulin resistance and
Mhm.
lifestyle approaches. Lifestyle type 1, kind of more of the autoimmune type, and then type
Right.
3 is the kind of term that people are using to go, maybe we should call Alzheimer's disease, or some of them anyway, not that's related to metabolic dysregulation,
Mhm.
type 3 diabetes, because it's to do with the blood sugar regulation in this group of people. So
Yeah.
yeah, this really shows the big impact. And of course, in the immediate sense, there is the so that's the longer term, and the immediate situation, there is the mood. The mood.
Mhm.
When we do know that when people have lots of sharp, swings of blood sugar, it affects their mental well-being.
Yeah.
And, hence stabilizing things actually just leads to an immediate feeling of, oh, I feel better. I
Yeah.
feel more grounded. I feel well. And that sluggishness, that fogginess, all that starts to settle. That kind of like, what am I thinking about again? That kind
Yeah.
of it all settles, and
Right.
that all this kind of a comprehensive way of going, okay, these are the dietary aspects to consider. These are the other lifestyle aspects, from physical activity to gut health to
Mhm.
sleep to so and so forth. So
Yeah. And that's something that I think if people have those big swings,
mm,
that's like it's almost like pain in your arm. I
mm,
have pain in my arm and it won't go away. I go to the doctor.
mm,
But a lot of times we have these big mood swings or big swings and sometimes it's in energy, right? Like I'm really energetic and then I'm fatigued and then I'm really energetic and I'm
mm,
fatigued. And it's like we have these big swings, but we go, it's just that's just life. Everybody
mm.
deals with that. But at least in the US with the numbers, like everybody deals with it because everybody's unhealthy,
Yeah, there is.
statistically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When I was writing my book, I came across a piece of research that was quite frightening, actually. I can't remember the precise numbers, but it was something like 25% of the people who have diabetes are not diagnosed in the US
Oh wow.
because, yeah, And of course, then the health impact from that. I have to look
Mhm.
back into my figures, but I mentioned that in one of the chapters about
Mhm.
the like how shocking that is,
Yeah.
which is why, for us to start thinking about, oh, what's going on with my health? How do I actually feel? Is it to do with my blood sugar levels? Let's get that
Mhm.
checked out.
Mhm.
Am I getting into a situation of diabetes or risk of diabetes,
Right.
pre-diabetes, dysregulation of metabolism, blood sugar management and things. So yeah, it is really, really important. And of
Yeah.
course, it's one of those where with modern life, sleep gets affected.
Oh yeah.
Many people uh, are sleep deprived. That affects metabolic health, stress, chronic high level stress, that really affects blood sugar management. And of course, there are other things like ultra processed foods. We know that really
Yeah.
dysregulates our gut health, causes a lot of blood sugar dysregulation, lots of hidden sugars and all that.
Yeah.
These lots of factors that makes it more and more likely for the population to get dysregulation of their metabolism, getting into
Mhm.
risk of blood sugar problems and diabetes risks. So yeah, this is kind of more of a proactive approach to going, okay,
Mhm.
what can I do to reduce my risk? What can I do to feel well?
Right. So is there one of those changes that is more important than the others? Like they're all those lifestyle shifts, if you're not getting sleep and you're eating poorly and all that stuff starts to snowball, is there one shift that's like maybe like, okay, let's try this one first to put the brakes on the best?
Yeah, well, it's very individual. So I
Mhm.
love to personalize things. I first ask the person their motivation, firstly,
Mhm.
and then from their motivation, what they actually enjoy. So
Yeah.
I basically give some options. It could be about nutrition, it could be about the physical activity, could be about sleep, could be about stress, various other things. And then, but what would be more enticing and more interesting for them to try?
Yeah.
And then we start from there.
Yeah.
And then from there, it creates a little snowball effect.
Hmm.
And just one little thing.
Yeah.
Your listeners probably know this book, Atomic Habits, James Clear.
Hmm. Yep.
Love James Clear, knew his writings before he wrote his book, long, long time ago when he started his
Yeah.
newsletter. And of course, what he talks about is the 1%.
Hmm.
The 1% accumulation. You just do something
Yep.
1% better.
Yep.
And that cumulative benefit is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Mm,
It really is. And that's the key, I think, is that people not get caught up in there's one specific way to do this,
yeah.
or oh well, I can't sleep that much because of my hectic life and what it is right now, and in the pressure that I'm under as far as paying bills or whatever. Okay, well, start with something else. Don't,
Mm,
like, even if everybody says sleep's the best, like, start with something else, because doing everything wrong just stacks the deck against you.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
everything that you could take off of that and go like, okay, I'm going to start doing this right, and I'm going to start doing this right, and down the road, and give yourself time to make that a habit, right? Like,
Yes.
not necessarily like, okay, I'm going to start this today, and tomorrow I'm going to do the next thing, and then the next thing. Like, give yourself time for that to become more of a natural part of your life.
And acknowledge every effort. The
Hmm.
fact that somebody has that intention is already a big thing.
Yeah.
And then to think about why that intention, what's the bigger why?
Yeah.
And then taking a little step towards it.
Yep.
And then because I think a lot of these things would be wonderful if there is more joy to it all.
Hmm.
It's like, all right, okay, I'm going to cut out ultra processed foods. But what does that mean? Cutting out ultra processed foods means losing the Sundays of going to this fast food place with the family.
Right.
Then that is like not so nice because there
Yeah.
is that family aspect of it. So then it's like, okay, what can we do as a family on the
Hmm.
Sunday? Let's go and create, like, do a little cookout together or something, something
Right.
that fits in with somebody's what they love, what they enjoy, and really having that sense of joy to it all.
Yeah.
Mm,
No, I love that. Yeah, replacing it with something that is going to be more beneficial from a health standpoint, but still brings you the other aspects that you're getting from it. Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah, love
absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
So how can people connect with you, find out more information about what you're doing, find your books, all that?
Oh, thank you so much, Jerry, for that question. So I have a website.
Mhm.
It's drsuiwongmd.com, drsuiwongmd.com. And that's where my your listeners could sign up to my newsletter. I have a Thursday
Mhm.
tips newsletter. Every Thursday, I write a short newsletter. It takes 1 minute to read. I
Okay.
share 3 tips, and I leave the reader with one question. And of course,
Okay.
people can connect with me through that way. I reply to emails from my newsletter, and also it signs up links to my books. I feel really passionate about this thing about helping more people, which is why
Mhm.
actually I'm on this podcast and which
Yeah.
is why I write my books. So I've got a couple of books that I hope your listeners would enjoy. One
Mhm.
is Mindfulness for Brain Health.
Okay.
So this kind of pivots on from a lot of the mindfulness research work I've been doing,
Mhm.
and it takes people from day to day, what kind of things they can do to create mindful
Yeah.
moments throughout the day. It's not about, oh, I'm going to sit for 20 minutes now to meditate. It's more like, how do I create these mindful moments? And in
Right.
the book, I share about also the breath work type things. And
Mhm.
this book, Sweet Spot for Brain Health, that's just out, well, recently out rather. And yeah, it's talks about the practical aspects. And
Yeah.
my books are really practical. It's written in a way to encourage people.
Mhm.
Hopefully, your listeners would understand my approach to these things
Mhm.
anyway. It's all about little things, what gives joy, what inspires, and what
Right.
empowers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hopefully, I would love for your listeners to connect.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I could say from both researching about you and talking to you that like it's very obvious that you're in this world to make an impact, right? And there's people that are in this world to do other things, or they're passionate about things, and they're not that that's a bad thing or a good thing, but like when you understand that you can make an impact in someone's life, I think it changes how you do things and why you do things in how you promote what you're doing and like how you dig down to find the answers for people.
Yes.
Because I think that's the biggest piece of whether you're trying to impact one person's life or millions of lives. Once you realize that you can make an impact in somebody's life, it changes how you live your life. And I can see that in you. And so I applaud you for that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate your kind words and being so generous with it. And I always think about how do we leave the world a better place for the next
Mhm.
person, and how do we leave a better impact to how do we create a ripple effect of
Right,
positive change? And
right.
I'm sure you would have from just our chats, you know, the ripple effect of the work that you do, how it just transforms from families to so many people, and it
Yeah,
creates that change through the communities. It's really profound, and really it's about creating a better place in this world for people, really.
right. Yep. No, I agree. Well, sweet. I want to thank you so much for being a guest. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Such a privilege and pleasure.
Thanks for checking out the Confidence Through Health podcast. Please subscribe, post a review, share this episode with those you love who need a little extra help with their health journey. Visit allinhealthandwellness.com to learn more about the coaching programs that I provide. All episodes are produced by the Social Media Cowboys, your source for all online marketing needs. Go to socialmediacowboys.com for more information.